Okay, so basically those things get ready to further Nyquist stability. Okay, so the encirclement basically is this. If we consider in the complex plane, okay, and say this is the point A here, we just simply arbitrarily pick out any point. Consider arbitrary B R B I R B R Y point A. Okay. So around A, if we would have a path, and the path is directional like this. Okay. So this is the path. And the path basically you could imagine just like when you learned calculus, you know we have learned how to do the path integral. Doing the integration along certain paths, the same thing, the same idea. You simply pick any path of interest. Okay. So under this situation, and we said the point A is encircled counterclockwise. Really depends on your preference or your interest. In this way is counterclockwise by the path. Okay. And so encircle basically the A located inside the path in topology. In geometry, okay, topology is the general meaning of geometry, and we might kind of thinking example like this. So say in the complex plane, okay, here for any drawing here we indicated really is in the complex plane. So say if we have such. So let me say, taking for this example, taking clockwise. Okay. So this is the complex plane, and this is the path on the complex plane. And so, for example, here we consider 2 points, and A is still here. And we consider B is here. So using this example, I want to show you how to determine the number of the encirclements for point A and B. And so in this way, the point A is encircled by this path. Let me call this path, I keep the name, okay? So say this path, I give the name lambda, okay, by path lambda. How many? How many times? 1? Okay. So here I give the answers. So the first one is once in in clockwise direction. Okay. So basically you can say negative. If you want to do sign conventions counterclockwise or positive, then yeah, this is negative. Or you simply write down the directions. And then point B is encircled by the path how many times? So here I'm going to show you the way to tell it. How many times? In which directions? Okay, so that's one. So here you can see, here is the quickest way to do the things. Using the point B as the center, and on the path, you simply pick any point as the test point, okay? So basically you connecting from B to here, so that gives you directors. So this, give you an arrow. This arrow is basically is a vector in the complex plane. So that arrow simply pretty much like we have is any arrow that has a magnitude have the angle, right? So using this concept, focus on the angle here. Okay, so we begin to count. So for example, right now you imagine have this test point to move along with the path. Okay, so right now you follow up with my marker here. So along the movement of the point along the markers, you can see this arrow begin to scan across the through the plane. Follow up this one until to this point has been one cycle already, one complete cycle, 360 degrees. Can you see it? Okay, and then we move on, continue. So that's going to enter into second phase of the 360 degrees. So right now we're back to here. So in total, this arrow has been spinning twice. Good? So that is being circled twice. In which directions? And follow up our the scanning that is clockwise directions. You good? Okay. And the same way you can apply to A, but A seems is pretty straightforward. So okay. So that is the first one. Then the second one I want to define is the principle of the argument. The principle of the argument basically is the general the foundations of the Nyquist stability theory. Okay, and basically that principle of arguments simply saying is this, n equal to z minus d. And that is the one I quickly give a review 2 days ago. Okay, and so basically here is repeating our statement, and here is this argument basically is based upon the conformal mapping, and conformal mapping basically here is this. We consider. Let me give the definitions. Okay, so n is the numbers of encirclement. Say, let me define our directions in counterclockwise directions of the origin in the in certain plane. I'm going to fill it. The principle of the arguments apply to of a certain functions of complex functions. The complex function can be anything. So in general, let me just give a name. Say this one. Okay. And these complex functions can be anything, including our characteristic equations. So when we apply to the Nyquist stability, then you simply pick the data as the characteristic equations. So basically, you can see from here, that one is a special applications of this one. But here we started from, per my terminology, this is a level 0, so very high level, the general theory. Okay. So this one is in the plane, in the complex plane of, let me say, in the complex. Okay, I'm going to explain it. Okay, how about let me do this one here. So you leave a certain space below, and I'm going to explain this one. So for example, here, earlier we have been practiced. So for example, say the data S, and I just name it. For example, this is 1 plus G as HS. And I try to link to our control language. So basically, this is kind of the the format of the characteristic equations. Okay. So now, when you learn the body plot, we have learned is this. We pick the omega and we calculate the magnitude and we determine the phase. Right, so here we pick omega equal to 0 and omega 1, omega 2, etc., etc., and we've been practiced. Then you can calculate the magnitude of this, and also the same thing, the phase angle like that one, right? So how to pick this omega? Right now, for our applications of the principal arguments, you select. I would say you sample, you select the point, the value of omega from the Nyquist path. Okay, so I'm going to define the Nyquist path in the following, but basically this path basically is defined as a Nyquist, well, I wouldn't say that one. This is a path. Okay, so how do you? I would say right now we haven't go to there yet. So I would say from the path you define from the defined path. Okay, so basically in here we've been studying is this. For example, when you learn the body plot. The body plot, the path, basically constitute the entire imagined axis, right? When we learn the body plot, what we learn is omega and equal to 0, omega 1, omega 2, and etc. And then we determine those kind of magnitude. We have the phase angle, something, then we make the plot, right? So from there, the body plot is we have the phase, and we have the angle, something like this one. So based upon using the magnitude, using the phase, we can make the Nyquist plot we introduced last time. So the Nyquist plot could be something like this. Okay, be good. So that is the one we've been done last time in our lectures. So if you like, you can refer to the lecture notes we posted. And here I want to modify the thing. I feel I made a little mistake here. It should be general. I would say this one basically should be in general S, and rather than this one, I would say is S1, S2, S3. The S is a complex number, a complex numbers. To be general. So here, rather than this one, should be any general S numbers. Okay. So when S on the desired path, and so here compared to the body plot, the path is, this is a real axis, and imaginary axis. For body plot, the path is defined here. Okay, but in general, you can see from their exercise, we can make another example here. So this is example 1, this is example 1, this is example 2. So for example 2, say we can define our path is this is the real S and imaginary S. And here the path can be like this. I just make up, okay? Either you can take counterclockwise or clockwise, really the direction based on your preference. I believe in our textbook, the textbook taking clockwise direction as the default direction, but really it doesn't matter, so, okay. So for example here taking counterclockwise, and so from here we select S1. and we select S2. So from here you can see S1 could be, say, equal to, say, A1 plus JB1, right? Depends on the location. That really is the complex number. So from here, you'll be able to calculate, for example, the magnitude of delta at the S, right? So that is the, based upon the selections of S1, you can calculate this one. That'll be good? And the same thing, and the magnitude delta S, you can calculate the angle here. So it depends on the selection of these things, and you can do a lot. You can just proceed the calculations. And once you have a magnitude, you have a phase angle, so you can have the drawing, and this is the real of the delta S and imaginary of the delta S. So right now, is I want to draw the, based upon the magnitude, based upon the angles, I want to plot here. So for example, that one could be, I make up one. Later I will give you the example here. So this could be something like this. So corresponding, this is the value. For example, this is the value of delta S1. Again, we pick argument for S1, we have a corresponding functions that is here. And say, for example, this is delta S2, etc., etc. Be good? So from here you can see, compared to the two examples here, actually the body plot is a special case of this one, right? So for this one, when we exercise the body plots, the selection of the S basically is a pure imaginary numbers here. Okay. So now here the N is the number of the encirclement in this plane. So right now you know this one is corresponding is this plane. And that is a plane, the plot of the point corresponding to this. And what is Z? Z is the numbers of zeros of delta S encircled in counterclockwise directions by okay. So basically this one is the path we select. So here without writing too much, this one basically is this one. This is the path we select. You good? Okay. And so basically that's saying, given any functions, you should be able to, whatever the method, to identify the zeros. For example, if say 0, let me make up 1. So for example, 1, 0 is here. And the other remaining zeros will be outside this path. In this way, the Z for this example will be equal to, in counterclockwise per our definition, that should be equal to 1. Be good? Okay. And so for this example, in counterclockwise, this is the origins. So in this case, the N will be equal to 1. The A definition is the number of the encirclements in counterclockwise of the origin. Origin of which plane? This plane. Okay, the complex plane for these functions. Okay. What is P? P is the numbers of the poles of delta S encircled by the plane. Okay, so say the example is like this. Say, let me make a 1. So here we have, say, 2 poles, complex conjugate, and how about this? And the remaining poles will be outside. So for this example, we have 3 poles being encircled. In this way, that will be equal to 3. Good? Okay. And of course, for this example, that won't be mapped, won't map into that one, but never mind, I just make an example here. Okay. So here is the definition for this. And so right now for this one, and that is the principal argument of the complex functions. Then the way how to use it, and I will give more detailed introductions. This one, if you're really interested, you can, again, in our textbook, and there's a short little sections trying to explain without rigorous proof about of this arguments principle. Okay, if you've been interested, then you can try to read it. Otherwise, I can try to find more information for you if you want to do it. So here, let me skip the portions for this kind of the introductions, okay, and the overview of the proof process. Let me skip that one, and the third one, let me directly get into the Nyquist plot. Nyquist path. The Nyquist path is get us to get ourselves ready to apply this argument to the Nyquist stability theory. So basically, the Nyquist plot is defined by this. So this is the Nyquist plot. The Nyquist path is a special case of such path. Okay. Again, back to our from the beginning, I said that when we pick this type of path, really depends on the your selection of the interest, the problem of the interest. So right now, for our control stability, then we select the very special one, and actually the path is to cover the entire right-hand side of the complex plane. Because our concern is this: we want to know any for the Nyquist stability or for the control stable control systems. We concerned is whether given any characteristic equations. Right now, I'm talking about this one. Given any characteristic equations, whether there's any zeros of the characteristic equations is on the right-hand side. So which means if there are any root of the characteristic equations on the right-hand side, then the system is unstable. So we want is there's a no root. No root is on the right-hand side. So we basically want to check that possibility. So we including all the real axis, the imaginary axis, and then here we're using the the semi circle, and the semicircle with a radius approaching to infinity. In this way to cover the entire right-hand side. Okay, and here again we can take the counterclockwise as a direction. So basically, this is the Nyquist path, which covers the entire right-hand side of the complex plane. Okay, that is right-hand side of the complex plane. And that is a general selection. So once we select this one, basically again, follow this concept, and from the path, we're going to select a few sampling points for calculation. Basically, the same thing is this. S equal to numbers, and then we're going to calculate and the value of these functions, okay? So basically, for our case, right now, for stability, for the study of stability, again, our concern is starting from the characteristic equations and say delta S, okay? And delta S could be, for example, say delta S equal to 1 plus G S HS. I pick up the form we equal to 0. So that is the characteristic equations. And for this one, we concerned is how many number of the roots of this equation on the right hand side. Hopefully 0. Then that is a stable system, right? You good? So here our concern is we want to know the number of the possibility of these functions, the root on the right hand side. Okay. So basically for this case, for stability, we want is no zeros on the right hand side. So that means for this case, z equal to 0. You good? Okay, so right now here I'm trying is to apply this argument principle to study the stability. So under this case, we applied our argument principle that n must be equal to minus p. So this is the, we call the, in definition, basically this is n equal to minus p. If you read our textbook, that simply have these equations. But this one is a special case of this one. So I would say don't give ourselves too much burden, unnecessary burden. So I would say everything we're starting from here will be easier. Okay. So for a stable system, we're asking the stable system must have these the features. If not, that means the system won't be stable. Easy. Okay. So the majority of the work for you to learn is actually a lot of the calculations to implement those tables. Implement those tables, which means you define your Nyquist path, and then you select in S1, S2, S3, S4, etc., and S5, 6, 7, and covering, hopefully sampling enough feature points, and then you calculate all the things. Once you have all the numbers here, try to map your calculation to build up this one. Once you have these figures, then that figure will allow you to determine how many times of the origin is encircled. Be good? Okay, so basically to get the number of this one, and basically you have to implement these calculations. Be good? Should be easy. Okay, so the remaining will be, I will help you to through quite a bit of the exercise examples. The focus will be on using this kind of tabulation to help you to plot the this kind of graph. Okay. So that keep this in mind. And here I want to have a more saying about the Nyquist path here. For the Nyquist path, sometimes say if we have poles, say if we have a pole of this one. So let me make one example here. Okay. So you can continue to take the notes here. So let me make a note here. Okay. And so for example, say for example here, let me make up one. So say data S will be equal to 1 plus, and let me make us explicit functions. K, 1, S, S plus 1, S plus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so if these will be the characteristic equations, then from here you can see the poles. We can determine the zeros of data S encircled by this one. Basically from here you can see the zero of the data S simply is determined by S, S plus 1, S plus 2, and plus K equal to 0. You simply find the roots, and that will be the zero of this one. So basically that one is the one here. Okay. And how about the poles? The poles of the data S simply equal to easy. S equal to 0, minus 1, and minus 2, right? And usually out here, I make a note is I simply want to emphasize most of the time, it is very easy, very straightforward to observe the location and number of the poles. You simply is observe from here. It's very straightforward. Once we are given this one, then right away that is the one. So basically this one is always the easiest part. You good? Okay, let me using that one to label here. So one pole is here, and one pole is here, and one pole is here. Okay? So if you have any poles locating on the imaginary axis, so for that case, the Nyquist path will be to surrounding, not to include. So here I would say here you can shoot using the semicircle to surround this. So that's the surrounding directions. So this one surrounding using the semicircle with a radius and equal to epsilon. That epsilon is approaching to 0. Basically, imagine is this. We try not to include any poles on the imaginary axis. So, for example, say if we have more. So, say if we have a pole here and we have poles here, then basically we try to surround them. That is a note I want to make here. And you can make a new plot to for this case. You go? You okay? Okay. So that is for this note, and so Scott, we can have a